Welcome to a thought-provoking episode of the Latino Business Report, where we delve deep into the ubiquitous facet of modern existence. The relentless wave of personal injury attorney advertisements as they envelop us, regardless of where we direct our attention, from the glow of television screens to the towering presence of billboards, these ads persist as an unwavering companion, a manifestation of the fierce battle to establish brand recognition and distinctive identity. In this episode, we are honored to introduce Jesses Gonzalez, a self-made luminary in the realm of legal practice. Emerging from the low Rio Grande Valley in Texas, Jesses' journey from a migrant farm worker to one of the region's most preeminent personal injury attorneys is nothing short of inspiring. Jesses has deftly navigated the intricate landscape of personal injury law, cultivated triumphs, and cultivating a legacy of excellence. Tune in for a trove of invaluable insights into the domain of personal injury law, generously shared by Jesses himself. He will illuminate the inner mechanisms of the industry and proffer indispensable counsel for those who may someday require the specialized knowledge of a personal injury attorney. Whether you seek guidance or legal complexities or harbor an intrigue for the intricacies of the field, this episode is an essential listen.
Welcome to the Latino Business Report. This podcast covers business, people, and issues of the day from a Latino perspective. The Latino Business Report is brought to you by TAMAC, the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce. TAMAC is the leading Hispanic business organization in Texas since 1975. Now for your host, Jesses Gonzalez.
Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Latino Business Report. In today's episode, we're going to be talking with Jesses Gonzalez, J. Gonzalez Esquire, out of the RGV, the Low Rio Grande Valley. He's joining us today. He's actually in Mexico City. Jesses, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. I'm doing great. Thank you for the for this podcast, for this interview.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for making the time. I know you're in Mexico City. I'd rather be there with you, my friend, sipping on a margarita or having a nice little tequila someplace, but we got to do what we got to do. Jesses, I asked you on the podcast because you have a very unique story. You're a very successful attorney right now, a personal injury attorney. It seems to be the thing that you can't turn on the television right now or go anywhere without seeing a personal injury attorney ad. You guys are great marketers, let me tell you that.
Well, and that's a good point, and that's something that I'm glad that you brought up, because a good measuring stick of how competitive a market or an industry is going into Google and trying to advertise with Google, right? And Google knows when people are looking for certain terms, right? They want to look for a car, they want to look for a computer, they want to look for someone to cut your hair, or a lawyer. And the demand is what Google looks at and says, well, there's a lot of demand for this, so we've got to charge a lot of money per click. And it's not uncommon to pay $1,000 per click if you want to advertise for personal injury cases and you want to advertise the most commonly searched terms. And so it's a hyper competitive industry, hyper competitive market. And you're right, you see a lot of lawyers doing advertising on TV, radio, billboards, social media, you name it. And to thrive, to survive, to be able to keep your doors open and have a successful business is not an easy task. And it's something that we're very proud of, that we're able to compete with the best. We're very proud of the fact that there are lawyers statewide that have tried to come into our market and have been unsuccessful. And those are things that I look at and I say, well, we've got to be doing something right in terms of the type of services that we provide, the results that we're giving our clients, the years of experience, the thousands of cases won, the millions of dollars paid. All of those things come into play, and marketing is just one of those things that we do to make sure that we're promoting the business in the way that we need to.
All right. Did I hear you correctly? You said $1,000 per click?
It's not uncommon, depending on the time of day the day, Monday versus Sunday, and how often a particular term is searched. And so Google knows what people are searching for when they're looking for a personal injury lawyer. And because they know that, it's not uncommon for them to charge up to and more than $1,000 per click. That doesn't guarantee you a case. That's just a click. You look up a lawyer right now in the Valley, and you look at the top 3 lawyers that are advertising up there. They're the top 3 because they're bidding the highest for that particular day and that particular time. And if you just click on that lawyer's website or his ad or her ad, poof, $1,000 gone in half a second, and you haven't even made a call.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's very competitive.
Very competitive. And right before I called you, I looked it up. I think the latest count, and maybe an old figure, but there's like over 385,000 attorneys in the U.S. That's a bunch of attorneys. And I know personal injury is a specialized field, but no, there's quite a few of them out there. So it's a very competitive field. And what you're saying is that marketing is a key factor to the success of your business.
Well, it can be, because you often hear of word of mouth advertising is the best, right? And I'm not going to argue against that, but I'm going to qualify that this way. Word of marketing is the best when it comes to ensuring you closing on a particular lead, converting that call to an actual client. That's when word of mouth advertising is the very best. Because if you champion someone's case, let's just say, somebody's father, and then the son calls the dad, I was in an accident, I need a lawyer. Dad, who do you recommend? Well, I use Jesses Gonzalez, call him. The percentage of the son hiring us when that happens is much higher than if the son sees my TV ad, my billboard, my radio ad, or sees something on social media. At that point, he may shop around, he may call, but then he'll call maybe 2 or 3 others, and he may not convert to an actual client. And so marketing is important in the sense that we'll get more leads than we wouldn't have if it wasn't for word of mouth. But certainly you can get a lot more leads when you advertise than when you don't. Because if you have 10, 15, 20, 30 clients, per year or per month or per week, whatever the numbers are, those are the only people potentially that can say good things about you to refer your business. But on any one given ad, for example, if you advertise during the Super Bowl, you may have up to 500,000 people listening, watching that ad that could potentially refer you business. And most lawyers will never see 500,000 clients in their lifetime, right? And so that's really the dynamic at work here that a lot of business people don't understand. That word of mouth advertising is very limited, and the way that you exponentially grow your practice or your business, whatever business you have, is by making sure that more people can hear about it, see it, and know what you do. And you can only do that through marketing.
So I'm going to ask, Jesse, do you have do you do your advertising in-house, or do you actually hire a public relations or marketing firm to do it for you?
Yeah, well, look, a lot of the stuff that we do, we've done in-house going back to when I started advertising back in 2003, 2002. But the more that we've grown, the more I've realized that we need people that devote themselves to marketing 24/7 and not just the practice of law. And so it would be impossible for me to handle all of this by myself. Am I very involved with the direction of what I want to do with my law firm, marketing wise, the message, the branding? Yes. I make sure that whatever we're doing is consistent with what we do as a brand here in the Rio Grande Valley and throughout Texas. But no, I've got very good people, great, team of individuals that know what they're doing. They work really hard. They're passionate about what they do, and they're very, very talented. And so I don't have an in-house agency.
Jesse, you're obviously a very successful attorney. When I'm in the Valley, I see you everywhere. It seems like you can't even look up without seeing one of your billboards. You can't turn on TV without seeing your ads. And we're going to get that to in a little bit, but that's some creative stuff that you're doing. But did you always want to be an attorney? How did you get into the business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I initially, I was a teacher, and I taught elementary school kids, and then transitioned over to teaching high school students. 12th grade English literature is what I was teaching for about 4 years. During that time, I decided to get a master's in educational administration. And it was during my studies in graduate school that I took a course in educational law that really, really piqued my interest and made me more curious about the law and its impact on education and students in Texas. And I thought, well, let me pursue more of this in law school and then go back and serve my community as an educational law lawyer. That was really the main motivation for me going to law school. Had nothing to do with me becoming a personal injury lawyer. Sometimes we think that we write our own script, but we really don't, right? We make decisions to do this and that, and then before we know it, a window opens or one closes, and then we find ourselves doing something completely different than what we had initially thought. And that's precisely what happened with me.
Well, Jesse, were one of your parents or one of your family members an attorney, or that kind of helped you guide your way through that, or not?
I'm the first lawyer in the family, and since I've become a lawyer, I inspired a nephew of mine to pursue studying law, and so he's a lawyer now. And my son, who's a sophomore in college now, tells me that he wants to also pursue a career in law. So we may have 3 lawyers in the family.
Now, growing up in the Valley, where'd you grow up in the Valley?
McAllen, Texas.
McAllen, Texas. And from what my notes, my pre-podcast notes tell me is that you grew up kind of, you didn't have much. Your family didn't have much. You were migrant farm workers. Is that correct?
Yep. Yes, we were migrant farm workers. We went up north. We worked in the fields of Minnesota, hoeing sugar beets. And, that's what we did.
Well, that's a big jump from migrant farm worker and then law, then, getting your teacher's certificates, becoming a teacher, then choosing to become a lawyer. So once you became a lawyer, did you work for a firm? Did you hang out your own shingle right away? How did that work?
Well, the way that works, obviously, for most students, what law firms are looking for, typically the really high paying law firms, what they're looking for is students that are graduating in the top 1%. They do law review, and they've got a highly concentrated line of coursework that is geared towards working at these big law firms. And for me, when I went to law school, I had a very general approach. I took a lot of different courses, and a lot of them didn't even have to do with material that would be testing me in the bar. But I took a lot of, for example, I took like at least 4 different courses related to personal injury because I loved personal injury so much. They call it torts in law school. So I took advanced torts. Then I took another course in products liability. And then I took another course that was related to personal injury in certain ways. And so
but what attracted you to personal injury?
I was just fascinated by the idea that in the United States, unlike many countries, if someone is negligent towards another person and that person is damaged, injured, incurs bills, incurs expenses that obviously they would not have incurred had it not been for that person's negligence or recklessness or malice, that there are remedies under the law that can provide relief for that for that victim or that individual. And, historically, going way back to before these laws even being in place here in the US, there was a lot of abuse by big corporations and big companies that treated individuals as just numbers, statistics, and they didn't even care. It was all about the profit and their profit margins. And so when some of these immigrants that came in to our country, and I'm not even talking about Mexico and or South America, I'm talking about immigrants from Italy, for example, or other European countries. They went to law school. Their children did. They saw the abuse. They saw what was going on, and they were the ones that championed their parents' cases. And that's when we started seeing changes in the law. And that's when we started seeing changes in the workplace, safer workplaces, safer cars, safer products, safer everything, right? And so a lot of times lawyers get a bad rap because they're called ambulance chasers or lawsuit abuse. And the thing of it is I've traveled all over the world. I've gone to China, I've gone to India, I go to Mexico, you go to all these different countries, and immediately that you're just not as safe because there are no laws that protect its citizens.
Right.
And is it more expensive to do business in the US? Yes. You'll hear doctors complain that they have to pay insurance rates that they wish that they wouldn't have to pay. Or certain businesses that have to get insurance because if they make a mistake, they're going to have to, obviously, pay these lawsuits, and they have these coverages, right? So, but at the end of the day, who are we protecting, right? We're protecting the masses. We're protecting the consumers. We're making sure that it's not just about profits, right? There's human lives out there that we also have to protect and take care of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right. It's not about profits. However, a lot of the big businesses were taking advantage of people, and then when the lawyers started suing them and digging into that bottom line, they started treating people a lot better. So, at the end of the day, people are chasing the money. It seems like, as we talk about this, you have as you decided to personalize or specialize in personal injury. Yes, very competitive. And I want to get back to the marketing a little bit. I've seen some of your ads, Jesse. I mean, I don't know if they're personal injury ads or if they're trailers for action-packed movies. I mean, you guys do a great job.
Well, and we have to, because again, it's very competitive. I call it I've phrased it as being hyper competitive. And so because of the competitive nature of my industry, we feel like every year we have to step up our game. And, it's gotten to the point where going back 4 years, there was a pattern that if someone did something very cool and other competitors thought, why didn't I think of that? All of a sudden you start seeing them mimic what you do. And it was very frustrating for me because just about every billboard, every commercial, every radio ad, you name it, anything that my team or myself would come up with to market my law firm, I'd turn around and see a competitor do the exact same thing. And so one day I said, I'm going to have to do something that's just so over the top that it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to want to try to imitate and copy. And so, back in 2021, that's when the Top Lawyer Super Bowl commercial came out. And that was, in fact, over the top. And, I had won a Top Lawyer award. And I thought, well, in the Navy, there's this Top Gun award for the best pilot. Right? And they choose the best of the best. And then from there, they get the best. And that's called the Top Gun Academy, right? Top Gun.
Right.
And I thought there's some similarities here because in that academy, less than 1% of the pilots get selected. And the award that I had won for top lawyer was less than 1% in the nation. And you mentioned 380,000 lawyers. And if you're less than 1% of that number, well, then that's saying something. And I called my marketing team and I said, guys, I see parallels here. The only thing is I'm not Tom Cruise, but if we take that movie using those parallels, we might be able to sell this in such a way that I don't think that my competitors will even dare want to copy this. And they took me up on that challenge. We put it together for the Super Bowl. It was a resounding success. And we continue pushing the envelope ever since. Following year, they shot me out to space because a movie that came out after Top Gun called The Right Stuff. You know, they took the best pilots, right. And what did they do with the best pilots? They shot them up to space, the space program that first started. And I said, hey, you know, if I'm the top lawyer and I'm the top gun, what's next? Well, then let's go to space. And so that's what we did. And interesting thing about that was they sent me off to space to detonate some missiles to destroy an asteroid that was headed to the valley. 1 year later, almost to the date of the Super Bowl, we had an asteroid hit the valley.
I'll be darned.
And so,
did you at least capitalize on that? Did you capitalize on that?
No, you know, we should have, but we predicted that. And so I was, you know, we made jokes about it and all that, but that happened. And then this last commercial, we thought, okay, well, who is the best spy in the world? Who is better than the best spy in the world? Who is simply the best? And it's
James Bond, baby. James Bond.
Right. And so then we transitioned from Top Gun to 007. And so our last commercial is a James Bond commercial. And you've seen it on my website. If you go to jgonzalezlawfirm.com, you'll see that commercial. And so we try to pay homage to some of these movies that we love. We find parallels, and then we do that to promote my law firm.
Okay, makes sense. So out of those three commercials you mentioned, which is your favorite?
I would say this last one is my favorite. The James Bond one, but okay. but the one that took the most courage, the one that put us over the top was the top lawyer one, because that was something that no one had ever seen.
That kind of broke the barriers there.
It took everybody by surprise. It was just it was just out of this world.
Do you do your own stunts in all of your commercials?
Yes, I mean, fortunately, we're not jumping off of buildings and doing crazy stuff that Tom Cruise obviously does. Going off a mountain in a motorcycle and then the parachute opens, or dangling off of a plane as it takes off. No, we're not going in that direction that far yet. But
okay.
But we do have a lot of fun. Filming commercials are not fun. It's work.
No, it's work. It is work.
And they can be what was I going to tell you? They can be stressful, they can be boring, and so
and they can be very expensive, I'm sure.
No, very.
They can be very expensive. What I'm going to do is, for our listener audience here, is what was that website again where they can see the current commercial?
jgonzalezlawfirm.com.
jgonzalezlawfirm.com. And if you guys look at the podcast notes, I'll go ahead and include a link to the very first one that kind of went over the top. So the Top Gun one. So did you get a call sign name when you did that? I mean, Maverick, Spider, Ice, Litigator. I mean, did you get a call? You didn't get a call sign and put it on a leather jacket or something?
No, we talked about it, but no, that was not anything that we we came up with.
Now, you mentioned earlier, you brought up ambulance chasers. I know that's a term that a lot of people refer to lawyers in your industry, but there's a difference. You are not an ambulance chaser. Can you kind of
Well,
define that
no,
for us?
because ambulance chasing refers to lawyers that seek out in an unsolicited manner uh, accident victims or people that have died as a result of an accident. They'll go to hospitals. They will literally, not just figuratively, but they will literally chase the ambulance. They'll see the ambulance, they'll follow the ambulance to the hospital, go into the hospitals and approach accident victims without the accident victims seeking legal representation. That is essentially what barratry is. And it's, obviously you're not going to find the actual lawyer doing that, but he'll hire someone. And a lot of times what you'll see is you'll have a clinic or a doctor together with a lawyer, and they pool their money and their resources, and they hire individuals to literally chase accident victims, chase ambulances, and that's the only way they get business. And that's illegal, of course. In fact, in Texas, it's a felony. You can lose your license. It's a felony. You can go to jail for it
but yet people still do it.
They do it because it's very lucrative. And, in South Texas, it's a big problem. And I would say that the vast majority of the cases that are viable cases are taken by those individuals who are breaking the law. They don't go about it the traditional way because, look, there's no guarantee that just because you're advertising, you're going to get any leads. But when it comes to chasing ambulances, that there's a victim. That it's not their fault. That they're injured more often than not. And it's direct advertising. You are there in person offering them your services. It's not, let me throw a big net out there and see if maybe out of a pool of 30,000 people, maybe there's 2 accident victims, right? So, but it's breaking the law. It's illegal.
Not only is it's illegal, but you personally are really opposed to this type of activity, chasing ambulances.
Well, I am, because if your business depends on your reputation for helping people and doing a good job and doing the things the right way and not breaking the law, and then you have others that are taking shortcuts and are cutting corners and are not reputable and are not doing right by their clients, but by virtue of the fact that they're cheating the system, now they're cheating actual accident victims who become victims twice, not just of the accident that they suffered, but this lawyer that approached them so that they could hire them. And so, me getting behind that cause serves 2 different purposes. Number one, I'm trying to protect the consumer.
Right. But Jesse, let me say, by getting behind that cause, you just don't, you put your money where your mouth is, don't you? I understand that you actually have purchased billboards and do pay for advertising opposed to that practice.
Well, what I've done is, obviously because I advertise a lot and I market a lot, TV, radio, billboards, newspapers, magazines, so forth. I've reached out to these marketing partners and I've said, hey, we have a big problem down here. And you all are taking my marketing dollars, but there's something called a public service announcement. And those are public service announcements across different industries, right? That are out there helping the public. You're not advertising for any particular business or businesses. You're just alerting clients to something that can help them. And so all I did was come up with the idea that there should be a public service announcement when it comes to barratry, the legal solicitation of accident victims, to protect them from these people, and to make sure that that more lawyers are doing things the right way, the legal way. And so, have we spearheaded that? Have I been a very loud and consistent proponent of this? Yes. I get on the air, I do interviews just like this podcast, and I'll talk about it, and I'll talk about, why it's a bad thing and why we should get behind the cause and so forth. And so I'm a big believer in giving that cause a voice. And I've been very fortunate to find marketing partners that agree that should be given a voice. And so more than probably anywhere in the country, more and more people in South Texas are being educated about why it's illegal and why they shouldn't do business with those type of individuals.
Makes sense. And thank you for doing that. Jesse, as we look at it, you have, like we said earlier, I mean, there's a lot of attorneys out there. It's very competitive. But I also noticed some of these things where people will get advertised and they get like the same phone number. They get different phone numbers. They have little gimmicks. One will jump on the back of an 18-wheeler. Some will jump with sledgehammers. Some will be flying in Learjets. But you have, what is it? And I can't remember. You have a certain phone number or something that you have that just kind of a universal thing that's easy to remember?
So we own 1-800-CAR-CRASH. I mean, we have that number across Texas. If you dial 1-800-CAR-CRASH, which is 1-800-227-2727, if you dial that number anywhere in the state of Texas, it will ring in my office, no matter where you are in Texas.
Okay. So your firm is licensed in Texas only, or are you also licensed in other states?
No, just in Texas.
Okay. And I understand that other states, actually, I mean, it's statehood. Every state has kind of different rules when it comes to some of these personal injury claims.
Well, every state is different, yes. And it's different because legislation is different. Every state has different needs. They have different priorities. And so, yes, it's a different deal.
So just ballpark, if somebody were to actually be killed in an accident, heaven forbid, but if they're to be killed, I mean, when you go after if it's a business or a big corporation that somebody's driver, T-boned them or was negligent, what kind of settlements are you looking at?
Well, every case is unique. And if you're going after a large corporation that did something very, very bad, you're going to be able to get a lot more money for that particular case than if it's just a regular individual who happened to just, run a stop sign, versus a huge 18-wheeler that, the driver was on some, medication or some illegal drug that impaired his ability to drive, or an overzealous company that doesn't care about drivers getting enough rest or maintaining their vehicles properly, which leads to somebody, getting killed as a result of their gross negligence. So it all depends on who the defendant is and the severity of the injuries that are suffered by the victim.
Makes sense. With that said, I know you have a bunch of vehicles coming out of Mexico into the U.S. Do the same type of, are they required to have the same amount of insurance for protection, or is there different rules for some of those 18-wheelers coming out of Mexico?
Well, a lot of it depends on what the load is. What are they carrying? And so that determines the amount of insurance that a carrier should have, right? If it's gravel and that's all you're transporting, you're going to find that the insurance limits for simple gravel is going to be lower than for, let's say, toxic waste, right? So it could be as little as 750,000. It could be as much as 15, 20, 25 million. So it varies from load, from whatever it is that you're transporting and how heavy your loads are and so forth.
Okay. As we look at that, Jesse, what would a personal injury? It's just not about people being in accidents. I mean, personal injury can mean a lot of other things too. And mental. There's the physical. There's the mental. What all does personal injury cover?
You're talking about wrongful death. You're talking about workplace injuries. You're talking about slip and falls. Um, you're talking about products liability. Even medical malpractice can be on there as well. So yeah, no, I mean, there's a wide variety of cases that can be part of that, part of the
Okay.
personal injury umbrella.
So it's just not about car accidents.
Correct.
All right. Jesse, if somebody were to be in an accident or have a bad slip and fall, or I would assume you'd recommend they get an attorney. What are some of the things that a person should look for in engaging with it or hiring a personal injury attorney? Or better yet, you know what? What are some of the things they should avoid?
When it comes to personal injury lawyers, I mean, what you want is you want to make sure that you hire someone that actually specializes and concentrates his practice in personal injury. There are a lot of lawyers that do personal injury cases, but they do a lot of family law cases. They do a lot of divorces. They do a lot of custody type of cases. They do divorce. They do DWIs, criminal defense, and they're all over the place. And oftentimes, what you find with lawyers that have general practices that practice also personal injury is that they'll disregard the personal injury practice because all of the other cases are very time consuming, requires a lot more hands-on work, being in court almost daily, multiple courtroom hearings daily. And, quite honestly, when you're dealing with, rights for your children or your liberty is at stake, am I going to go to jail because I broke this law or that law, or I'm being accused of this? That's going to take a lot of precedence over an accident that occurred, and you're waiting on the therapy, you're waiting on the bills, you're waiting on the reports, you're going to put together a demand packet. Now you're waiting on an adjuster. And so what I have found is that a lot of these cases don't take the precedence. They don't give it it's not a big priority for them to put them at the top of their list in terms of what needs to get done. But if that's all you do, and you don't do anything else that distracts you from that, well, then you're going to have processes and procedures. You're going to have people that also are specializing in those areas that are going to be great at pushing those cases through, because the biggest issue with these personal injury cases a lot of times is that cases will sit way longer than they should. And they collect dust a lot more than they should, right? They just push them down the road, right? And so we don't do that at my law firm. We make sure that things get done expeditiously, timely. We make sure that, yes, they have the right value, and we're not leaving anything on the table, but we're pushing them.
Bottom line, you guys specialize in this.
Well, so bottom line, we make sure that that's all we do. And so, yes, you can say that.
So, I mean, if I had a eyes, ear, and throat problem, I wouldn't go to a podiatrist. I find that specialist that knows what the heck they're doing. Jesse,
correct.
How many locations do you have now, and where are they?
Right now, we've got 5 locations. We're getting ready to open our 6th location, and
what
so
cities
yeah.
What cities are they in?
We've got our headquarters currently is in McAllen. Then we have an office in Rio Grande City. We have an office in Westlaco, an office in Harlingen, an office in Brownsville. So, right now, 5 locations, working on a 6th.
Any plans on expanding outside the valley?
Yeah, I mean, I think down the road, once we open our new headquarters in Edinburgh and we get that solidified and done, and then we see what we have as a whole, as a practice, and we look at our business model, we'll see if there's a need for us elsewhere. And I think if we stay close to the border and we serve largely a Hispanic population, because that's where all my offices are located right now, I think there's a good chance that there will be a demand for our services. And so, potentially Laredo, potentially El Paso, Amarillo, Corpus Christi, we're trying to stay close to the border.
Okay. And if a person has been in an accident or injured and they feel that they have a case and they're seeking out a personal injury attorney, on an average, what is it going to cost them to actually engage an attorney?
Well, when it comes to these cases, lawyers work on what's called a contingency fee basis. And what that means is they don't charge unless you win. That's really all that is. That's just a fancy way of saying, um, you've got to win to get paid. And so, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the way these cases work. And clients understand that they've got to be 100% satisfied with the results, or else they've got to have a face-to-face meeting with me or my lawyers or my team, and then figure out what their options are. Should we file a lawsuit on this case? What other options can we explore? At the end of the day, what can we do to make our clients happy? That's the bottom line.
Okay, so contingency basis, a person needs an attorney, a personal injury attorney. Contingency basis where they're not paying unless they don't pay, and they get paid when the case is won.
Yes.
Okay. Out of all those offices, just how many attorneys do you have? How many employees do you have working with you?
Well, it fluctuates depending on the volume of cases that we have, the complexity of the cases. I mean, we've had as many as 2 in-house associates at some point. Right now, I've got 1, but then there's about 10% of cases that we work on that we don't work on because we don't specialize in those areas. We don't work in those areas. And so we've partnered up with about 10 different lawyers that have a lot of experience, that share my values, my beliefs, the way that a business should be run, a law firm should be run. And so far it's been working well for us.
Well, you mentioned it is a business, and very impressive from migrant farm worker, education, school teacher, then of course becoming a lawyer, and then setting up a very successful practice in the Valley. You said your son was thinking of becoming a lawyer. Are you encouraging him to do so, or are you kind of saying, "Mijo, go do something else. This is crazy"?
Yes, no, I mean, that's what he wants to do, and it's still early in the game. He's only a sophomore in college, and so we'll see if that holds true for him.
Okay. Well, Jesse, I want to thank you. We're almost out of time here. I do have a question though. What is the statute of limitations on an injury?
2 years.
Nomás, just 2 years?
Well, it depends. Personal injury cases as a whole, 2 years. But for the most part, you're looking at a 2-year statute of limitations.
Okay. Because I was just thinking, I mean, growing up, I was hit with the chancla so many times. I was just wondering if maybe I could file or get a class action suit going against mothers that use chanclas, but okay, maybe not. Before we're out of time here, Jesse, was there anything you'd like to leave with the listening audience? Anything in particular? And I do want to thank you, because I also understand you being very modest about it. Along with your successes, you give a lot back to the community, a lot back in the ways of sponsorships, donations, contributions. So I really, really admire and respect the way that you're not just only being successful at business, but your business and your heart is given back to the people as well.
Yeah, no, look, and nothing brings me more joy than when I'm in a position to help and give back to the community that I serve, because I've always said this: without the community looking to us for their personal injury needs, well, I wouldn't have a successful practice. And so a great way of giving back is to be there when they need us the most. Sometimes we get hit by hurricanes or tropical storms or freezes, or there's events like back to school, Christmas, Thanksgiving. Whenever we're in a position to be able to help, we do, and we make ourselves available. And the fact that we've got offices across the Valley that are very convenient and very accessible puts us in a position to do more than most. And when we have had that opportunity, we have done it. And I got to tell you, I get more joy out of doing that than winning cases for millions of dollars, because I know I can see how we're benefiting the community there directly, not just one individual, but people as a whole, a community as a whole.
Well, thank you, Jesse. You have a great heart, great business model, and boy, those advertising dollars, $1,000. If somebody, $1,000 a click, that is crazy. We know Google's making money, don't we?
Or more. And shockingly, that price came up because there are lawyers that will buy my name because they know that my name is also very commonly searched and very popular, and they'll buy my name so that when they look up my name directly, their ads will pop up, and they have paid up to $1,000 to buy my name. So
wow, and they can do that. They can do that.
Well, Google doesn't care. They just want your money. They just want your money.
Oh man, the business of law. It's crazy. Jesse, thank you so much for taking the time being with us today. I know I've learned a lot. I hope our listeners have picked up a few tips. I just do have one parting question. Maybe it's something your team is working on, but next time I go to the Valley and I'm in a Walmart and I'm in the toy section, am I going to see a Jesses Gonzalez action figure? I mean, it seems, you've been an astronaut, you've been a spy, you were the Top Gun type character. I mean, action figure?
Well, look, my team has actually come up with that idea already. And we're not anywhere close to being there yet, but it's just money. If I say, well, how much would an action figure cost? So much. Well, if I cut the check, there'll be action figures.
Okay.
But it just hasn't happened yet. Right now we're focusing on coffee mugs and caps and t-shirts and koozies and things that have a function. Is an action figure maybe something we can do down the road? You never know.
There you go. And listeners, you heard it here first. Hey, Jess, once again, thank you very much. Thank you for taking care of people of the Lower Rio Grande Valley. I know it's a passion for you, and it's an amazing story from migrant farm worker to attorney, very successful attorney, competing and making a difference and changing people's lives. Folks, you've been listening to the Latino Business Report. I've been your host, Jesses Gonzalez. You can find all of our library of episodes at latinobusinessreport.com. And you can also find us on YouTube by the same name, Latino Business Report. Until next time, be careful, drive safe, don't get hit by an 18-wheeler. But if you do, you know who to call. Jesse, take care.
Thank you.